Hey everybody, welcome back. Mike from Spectre Comics. Got another Photoshop tutorial video for you today. I'm going to show you how to blur a background. I'm going to do two examples of background blurring. One is going to be by taking a drawing that I did. I'm going to insert a background and then I'm going to blur it, and it'll make the foreground picture, the characters in the picture, kind of stand out as the background is blurred behind them. The second thing I'm going to do is take a photograph and I'm going to isolate the people in the photograph, and I'm going to blur out the background. I'll show you how to do that. So we'll have two examples. Make sure you stay for the whole video, and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is take this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle drawing that I did a while back. Now normally when you see the turtles, they're in an alley fighting the Foot Clan. So I grabbed an image of an alley and I'm just going to copy this into my drawing. Now this is a layered drawing, which means I can insert something behind what I've already drawn. If everything's flattened, you won't be able to do that. If you have a picture like this and you don't have all the layers isolated, you can always kind of cut out the figures and then insert the background behind them. I'll show you how to do that in the photograph. The same principle applies, but let's just take this layered drawing. I'm going to go to the very bottom layer. The next layer is the paper layer, which is the white that we see in the image. And I'm going to create a new layer, and that's going to be my background layer. So I'm going to paste in the photograph. Now the photograph came in really small, so I'm just going to take that and enlarge it and fill in the background. What I did there, when the photograph came in very small, the background, I basically used the rectangular marquee, and then I used the move tool, and I just grabbed the grips that were part of the photograph in order to stretch the photo to fill the white space. So once it's stretched and placed where I want it, it's actually really small. It's a really tight alley, so I'm going to actually enlarge it so it looks more in proportion with the characters. That looks a little better. Once I've placed everything where I want it, you just hit the check mark and the photograph will resize itself, and it became pretty crisp. I can always still move it. Again, it's isolated by itself. Now to blur the background is really simple. I just simply take the rectangular marquee tool, I stretch it to the entire background, and then we're going to insert or apply a blur to it. So I go to Filter, we're going to select Blur, and there's a bunch of different blurs here. I like Gaussian Blur because it gives me the most interesting effect for what I'm actually going for. And you'll notice once you select that, it gives you a degree of blur. You can use this slider down here, and I can make it really blurry, the higher the number, or just slightly blurry. So let's start with a slightly blurry image just so that we can see it kind of gradually change. Hit OK. It takes a second for the blur to take effect, and it just only slightly blurred it. You almost don't even notice a difference. So let's go a little further with that. Go back to Blur, Gaussian Blur. Let's try it again. Blur, Gaussian Blur. And that actually gets me a very blurry image. So once I do that, if that's the level of blur you want, keep it. You can save and flatten your image, and now you've got the foreground characters that are clear and the background is blurred behind them. So that's the way to do it in a drawing. Let's take an image now of a photograph. So here's a picture of my wife and I when we took our trip to Nashville. This is the Pantheon replica that's on the Vanderbilt campus. So the first thing I want to do is I always make a duplicate of the layer just in case I screw up. So I'm going to right click on the layer. I'm going to duplicate the layer and just save a copy. And I'm going to turn that layer off and just preserve it just in case I need it. The next thing I'm going to do is use the Polygonal Marquee, and I'm just going to select the area around us. And this is the same thing that you would do to apply if you, from the last sample we did with the drawing, if your background and your foreground, everything's flattened, you don't have a layer system in that drawing, you can do this same technique to isolate what you don't want to be blurred. So I'm going to do this quickly, but I would be very careful to go around the image here, and I'll actually speed this up so that it goes a little quicker, but you get the idea as I'm selecting around. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the entire background and basically blocking us out, or basically masking us from getting affected by the blur effect we're going to apply to the photograph. So once I've isolated the loop, you can see that everything's highlighted except for my wife and I in this photograph. So now what I want to do is do the same thing we did for the turtle drawing. We're going to go ahead and hit filter, hit blur. You can experiment with the various other blurs there are. Again, I like to use Gaussian blur. And you can select a different degree. So let's go about 20 here. Hit OK. Right click, hit deselect, and now I've blurred the background in this photograph. So that's just a quick effect you can add to blur out your background, whether you're using a photograph or a drawing. There's a simple filter that you can apply to allow you to blur the background in your drawings or photographs. So that's it for this video. If you found it helpful, go ahead and put a thumbs up on the video. If you have any questions or comments on the process I used, go ahead and put that in the comment section below. I will have a playlist to other Photoshop tips right here in a second. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.